So, after my last DPH trip, where I ended up getting caught by my parents, I took a long break from DPH, partially because I couldn't do it at my house anymore, but mostly just because after everything that had happened, I didn't really feel like doing it for a long while. But eventually, I did decide I wanted to try it again. I wanted to try 700 milligrams, which is a pretty big deal in the DPH community because it's supposed to be the dose where you get fully delirious, even though I'm pretty sure I'd been fully delirious or at least pretty close to it during my other trips. I still wanted to try it, especially because I was considering quitting DPH for good and I wanted one last big memorable trip before I did. Also, I think in my third DPH video, I said that my first trip and the trip in that video were the only times I did DPH without DXM, but I forgot that I also didn't do any DXM during this trip because after my last trip, I kind of realized it was overkill on really high doses of DPH like that, so I just skipped it this time to be safe. But anyway, I talked to my friends, Tony and Isaac, and we came up with a plan. Isaac and I would spend the night at Tony's house, and they'd trip sit me while I did it, and they were also gonna do some LSD, so they had something to do other than just watch me. So on the day of the trip, Tony and I walked from school to the store and picked up the DPH and then met us there. Then we went to his house and then Isaac met us there shortly after, and we just hung out for a while until it was later at night when I wanted to dose. Around the time I wanted to dose, they were kind of teasing me a bit and making me irritable, and also I just wasn't feeling super well physically. So going into the trip, my mindset was already kind of bad. On top of that, while I was dosing, Tony scared the shit out of me by saying that he was worried I might have a seizure on such a high dose. But despite all that bullshit, I finished dosing and I went to the bathroom real quick, and after I came back out, Isaac asked me if I washed my hands when I came back, and I told him I forgot, but it was starting to hit me and I didn't care and I just wanted to lay down, and he started tweaking and basically forced me to get up and wash my hands, which really pissed me off. But I did it and laid down and got ready to trip despite them kind of being assholes before my trip. Pretty soon after it kicked in, I got a massive wave of dysphoria and knew I was going to be in for a pretty rough ride. As I started to come up a little bit more, I stopped being able to move my thumbs, and I was very worried I'd never be able to move them again. I also got like really bad brain zaps and RLS and just shaky overall, and I started freaking out because I thought I was having a seizure like Tony said I might, and it was extremely horrifying. But eventually I calmed down and I realized I wasn't having a seizure, and I also realized I could move my thumbs again. And a little bit after that, I started to notice some visuals. At first, it was just Tony's room looking a little bit distorted, but then I saw a wooden cabinet next to me for a second that wasn't really there, and then I got this really weird and specific visual. It was like a swarm of flies that were flying in the shape of a ball, and they floated towards me slowly, and once I touched them, they disappeared and reappeared back where they were before they went towards me, and that happened like 3 times in kind of a loop. But eventually, after that stopped, I laid back down and felt myself getting more and more out of it mentally. I tried to talk to Isaac for a second, but I could barely speak, and I just gave up. I got some more visuals after that. I kept seeing my water bottle in places, but when I tried to grab it, my hand would phase through it, and I realized it wasn't my real water bottle. I also saw Tony's cat up in the room with us, even though she was upstairs with us at the time. And I saw my cat, even though she was all the way back at my house. But soon after that, I saw shadow people for the first time on DPH. And the ones I got were actually 2D shadows that were stuck on the wall. And I thought they were just shadows for a second because they looked like they were following Isaac when he walked. But then they kind of stopped doing that and started moving on their own. And that's when I realized they were shadow people. And after watching them for a bit, one of them blew an air horn and did a Fortnite dance. I'm not even kidding, which confused the fuck out of me. But it was really funny looking back on it. And they stayed around for a good amount of time, and I just watched them. But eventually, they did go away. I think a little bit after they went away, I started, like, hallucinating that Tony had got caught by his mom, and I heard a fake argument between them. And it actually sounded pretty realistic, but it wasn't. It was fake. And I was laughing because I was really high and I thought the argument was funny even though I thought we were caught. But eventually that stopped too. And the next thing I remember was, even though my phone was off and taken away from me so I wouldn't call people, I thought I looked at my phone and the time on it said 12 p.m. the next day, which when I was supposed to go home. And I thought I saw my dad's car outside the window. So I got up and I started trying to pack my stuff and get dressed. And Tony and Isaac were really confused and asked me what I was doing. And I told them, like, dude, it's like 12. I gotta go. My dad's here. And they started laughing really hard and told me it was only 5 a.m. And I was really confused and didn't believe them at first. But eventually they convinced me. And I laid back down. And I was glad I didn't have to leave yet, though. It was kind of like that feeling you get when you wake up early and you look at the clock and realize you have more time to sleep before you have to get up. But anyway, I lied back down and got settled again. A little while after that, I pictured seeing my friend Doug get caught by his parents for vaping, and he was running away from them while taking hits of his vape, and it was really funny. And like almost right after that, I thought that him and my other friend Jade had came over to Tony's house to spend the night too. And I saw fake versions of them for the rest of the night, and I didn't realize that they weren't really over until the next day. And Jade even stole my spot on the bed somehow, despite not being real, which really pissed me off. But I think after seeing them for a while and thinking they were there, I was starting to black out. And the last visual I remember before blacking out was I saw Isaac in nothing but tidy whities, and he was super hairy, which it looked super weird because Isaac is really skinny and doesn't have any body hair at all, so it just didn't look right. But after seeing that, I blacked out, and I have no memory of doing this, but apparently when I was blacked out, I did something funny, according to Tony and Isaac. So around the time of this trip, I was considering moving down to the lower level math classes our school had called foundation courses, because I was tired of dealing with math and I was just being lazy about it. I guess I was thinking about it at the time because apparently I started saying I was in honors foundations, which doesn't make any sense because I feel like that would just level out to the normal math course again. But I said I was in honors foundations, and I started taking school papers out of my backpack and trying to do like math homework. And Tony and Isaac had to stop me and give me to put it away, but I don't remember that at all. If they didn't tell me that happened, I wouldn't have known that happened. All I remember is waking up the next day feeling like total dog shit, and Tony came up to me and talked to me, and he told me Isaac already left, and I said, yeah, it looks like everyone else left too. And he was like, what? And I was like, everyone else left too. And he was like, and I told him I thought Doug and Jade came over too, and he was like, no, it was just you, me, and Isaac. And I didn't believe him at first because I didn't realize they were fake, but eventually he convinced me, and I realized I was just really delirious. But I got ready after that, and my dad picked me up, and I think he could tell that I did something because I just wasn't feeling well and it looked obvious. But I went home and I just rested the whole day because I had a really shitty come down for the entire day, and then I went to bed that night, and that was it. And yeah, this trip was definitely my strongest DPH trip I've ever had, and at the time I thought it was pretty cool, but I also knew it was probably going to be my last DPH trip, or one of them, because I knew I couldn't keep doing this to my brain and body, and I am happy to say that it was my last big trip. I did 150 mgs like a couple months after this trip to try out the aphrodisiac effects of DPH, but I finished too early, and then I just felt really shitty for a couple hours, and then went to bed at like 8 p.m. on a Wednesday. And after that, I did DPH a couple of times to help with DXM nausea, but I'm proud to say that since then, I haven't had a single mg of DPH in my body in like 2 years, I think it's been, and I'm not gonna have any more. I'm done with it. And despite all the bullshit it caused, I am still glad I tried it because it gave me a lot of interesting life experiences, but I think I'm ready to move on from that part of my life. Around the start of last year, 2020, I left most of the DPH community on Discord and Reddit due to years of toxicity and also the fact I don't plan on doing DPH ever again. And now that this last trip report is almost over, DPH no longer has to be part of my life, and that feels insanely good to be done with it, and I'm insanely excited to start talking about reports about different drugs and other things too, not just drugs. But the next report I'm going to be doing is going to be the start of the acid reports that I had. So look out for those. I should make it pretty soon because I'm excited to report on something that isn't DPH. And thank you to everyone who's been following my channel so far. You guys mean a lot to me. Yeah, thanks for watching. Check the description for info on DPH and other stuff. Goodbye.